Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It is Monday, January 2nd. Happy New Year. My name is Jason Flame, host of the Master Motivation Podcast. And thank you guys for being a little bit patient. I was receiving messages asking, hey, are you going live? Or is Mr. Pohnel going to be on? Yes, here we are, and we are live. So my guest today is Mr. Ron Purnell. He is a 1980s five-time international champion in sport karate. He's got several film credentials. Firecracker, did stunts on Force 5, stunt double for Benny Urquidez. He was in Ninja 3, The Domination, martial arts stunts, stunt double for Sho Kasugi, martial arts stunts in Karate Kid 1 and 2. He was in No Retreat, No Surrender, one of my favorite old school movies, and so much more. And I can't wait to let him tell you more about his accomplishments and talk with him today. So, Mr. Pohnel, thank you for being on the show.
Wow, thanks for inviting me. I mean, it was last year that you invited me, and I go, okay. So I have so much to tell you. And you want me to start from the very beginning, or just go to the Sherman Oaks days? What would you like?
Well, let's start, because here's the deal, guys. For those of you watching, yes, I booked this show out like a year in advance. I'm already booked for almost all of 2023 on Mondays, and starting to book the Wednesdays of 2023, which is super exciting. But one of the connections that Mr. Pohnel and I have is that we share an instructor in common, or an old friend. Dennis Ichikawa has been my instructor since 1985. That's who I started with, and still train. As a matter of fact, I'll be earning my 8th degree black belt this year with him, and very proud of that. But we have a black belt board in T.O. Westlake Karate Studio. Mr. Chikau has always kept a board, and we would always look at these names, and we would ask him, who's this guy? Who's that guy? Tell me the history. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you are number 5. Is it 3 or 5?
Three.
Number three. Number
Three.
3. And I also know that you were Tom Bloom's instructor, who is someone that I always looked up to as a kid, going to tournaments and watching him at his schools. He'll be on the show in a couple weeks. So we have this connection, and we've probably only met in person, once a long time ago. You were telling me a story actually that I don't even think I remember, but I followed you on Facebook, and love, everything that you're doing. There's so much more than the movies and the martial arts. We can talk about Pastor Poe, as you're called. So let's start with the Sherman Oaks days, because I think that a lot of people watching right now will really resonate with that.
Okay. So this is how I came about with Sherman Oaks. Now, I first started with Bob Osmond Karate in Tarzana.
Hmm.
And then Dennis Ichikawa and Harold Gross opened up the Tarzana Karate across the street.
Hmm.
So I was actually in martial arts 1 month, and I go to a tournament. That's how competitive I was. 1 month. So after a year, and I was disillusioned with my instructor Johnny Atkinson. So I went across the street, and they took me in as a green belt. I said that was great, and Master Ichikawa whipped me into shape. I mean, he's the master of kata, master of forms, and I was blessed to have his foundation, because later in my career I became a kata champion, mainly because of that foundation. So Harold Gross, each of them had a certain specific way. Master Ichikawa was the afternoon instructor. Harold Gross is the night instructor, and I was a fanatic. Went every day, 6 days a week, 7 days if there were tournaments. So I made an unprecedented 2.5-year black belt, which nobody gets to in Tong Sudo. Once you get to red belts every 6 months. So Pat Johnson sanctioned the test. He sat there, and I think only a few people sanctioned Tarzan Karate after me, because I was able to be a Chuck Norris black belt through Master Ichikawa and Harold Gross. So as the story goes, Harold Gross bought Sherman Oaks. So they both did as a partnership. So at that time I was an instructor, so I'm going back and forth helping teaching in those days. Mm-hmm. And so I mainly ended up in working at Sherman Oaks with Harold Gross, because actually I was his roommate for a while. And the greatest thing about Sherman Oaks was Pat Johnson. I'm sure you know who Pat Johnson is.
Of right? Course, absolutely.
Okay, so he's the guy. He was the smartest one of them all, because he got into the motion picture industry as a stunt coordinator. And his first job, I think, was Enter the Dragon, where he actually did all of John Saxon's choreography. As you know, John Saxon wasn't a martial artist. Mm-hmm. So Pat Johnson did pretty good with him. And I did impressions. I did impressions of Pat Johnson and Bob Wall. Okay. And they called me out on it. And then Pat Johnson, Roper, we're going to break something, it's like in the movie. So anyways, Pat Johnson always had private lessons. And Sherman Oaks had a big curtain that would separate the studio. And that day, I was the afternoon instructor. And one of the guys, and this is after my black belt test, he was teaching with Steve McQueen.
Mm-hmm.
And I walk in the door, and Ron, I want you to meet Steve McQueen. And wow, how are you? My goodness. And Ron, congratulations for your black belt. I'm thrilled. He's a movie star icon. And other people that he brought by was Jackie Chan. Ron, we're doing the big brawl. I want you to meet Jackie Chan. And, so nice to meet you. And all these guys that came through, it was so many of celebrities. But I'll tell you one Steve McQueen story. This is really funny. So at Sherman Oaks, there was a redwood sauna room. And we're all sitting there, and we're sitting there with Steve McQueen. Now, Steve, this is his later, with a full beard, full hair, where you wouldn't recognize him. And he says, Ron, listen, if anyone calls here looking for me, you haven't seen me. I had to punch someone out in the market. I couldn't believe it, real life persona, and I thought I was thrilled about that. But other people that were over as far as celebrities, like music celebrities, Jackson Browne brought his kid. There, Chris Hillman of the Byrds taught me how to play bass. Ralph Johnson of Earth, Wind and Fire was one of my black belts. And then Bill Bixby, Tyler Shire, you remember her, Rocky's wife.
Yeah.
So I used to teach their kids, kids. So I taught the kid to go, hey, go tell your mom, go, hey, do that, and I was have fun with all this kind of stuff. One day, Bill Wallace brought in John Belushi for a private lesson. And after the lesson, he's hanging out with us, and the guy was just so naturally funny. It was unbelievable. We just had so much fun. So anyways, when you were talking about me doubling for Benny Urquidez, this is another funny story. He says, Ron, this is Pat Johnson. He's the stunt coordinator for Force 5. He says, Ron, come here. I need you to go up in the helicopter as Benny Urquidez. Well, how come Benny doesn't go? Because if the helicopter crashes, I won't lose my star. This is a true story. So anyways, so here's the biggest story with Pat Johnson that I think is the absolute greatest story possible. He's now doing the Karate Kid. Mm-hmm. And Pat Morita, they pull the curtain, but when you pull the curtain, you still can see in the mirror what they're doing, And he's teaching Pat Morita and Ralph Macchio, and we're watching him do this. And we're looking at each other. I think Tom Bloom was with me. And we're looking at each other, what is he doing? What could that possibly be? And we were baffled. Little did we know that Pat Johnson is a genius, because that became the signature martial art move in the world. So anyway, I mean, it was unbelievable. We couldn't believe it. And when I did Karate Kid 2, I go onto the set, and Ralph Macchio sees me. Hey, Sherman Oaks. So he remembered me. And then over here at Alexio fight, Dennis Alexio, Pat Morita was in the back. He was backstage. He goes, oh, well, Sherman Oaks. So they remembered me through those times. Mm-hmm. It was kind of cool.
Yeah. And let me. Can I jump in real quick? Can I jump in? So we're talking about these Sherman Oaks days, and if I'm, the timing is right, like late 70s, early 80s, we're kind of in that era. Can you tell me how you even found martial arts? What prompted you to get enrolled in martial arts? You said you started at
Bob Osmond.
Bob Osmond's, and that was a Kempo school. Am I correct?
No, Okinawa.
Okay.
Okinawa Nishinryu.
Okay.
Do you live out in Thousand Oaks by any chance, into that area?
I'm close. I'm in Moore Park.
Okay. Do you know what Cronies sports bar?
Mm-hmm.
The guy who owns Cronies was my junior high school friend, since Chuck Diego, and he's the only guy that can collaborate the story I'm going to tell you. So I started training at Bob Osmond's, and you know, and I'm somewhat, not really, but kind of showing off during PE. And they go, "Oh yeah, Pohnel, what do you really know? What do you think you know karate?" And I'm eating an apple, and this huge 6-foot kid. I says, his name was Chris Kylie. I said, "Here, take the apple and throw it at me. I'll cut it in half." So I stood there, much like Ralph Macchio, you know, not knowing what I'm doing. He threw the apple, and boom, it split. Dumb luck. I didn't split it. It just hit my hand. I got a reputation from that point on, and was never bothered through high school.
Wow.
Ever from that point on. Okay, so from that point on, the reason I got into martial arts was my high school girlfriend at the time was being abused by her father. I'm talking physically abused. Wow. You know, and I needed to be ready if there was a confrontation, and that's why I started martial arts. I stayed with her for 3 years. I got her out of that house, but I never had that confrontation. But that's why I actually went to a tournament 1 month into my training. And it was a Mike Stone 4-season tournament. And this is the reason that I give any white belt, anybody credit who steps into the ring. Because when I stepped into the ring, I didn't so much have to fight that guy across the way. I had to fight the adrenaline and anxiety that was going through my body. That was what I had to fight the most. Mm-hmm. And from that day on, 7 years later, it took 7 years, mind you, to become a champion. And I trained with Mike Stone, and his definition was of a champion was a consistent winner. So when I made black belt, it took me 4 years of seconds and thirds to finally get over the top to reach the formula for me to be a consistent winner. Once you get there, then you have to stay there. That's even harder than getting there. Mm-hmm. So that's how the whole thing. And out of Sherman Oaks karate came some of the greatest martial artists, including Master Tom Bloom, Master Johnny Gyro, Master Joey Escobar, and Master Mark Zacharias. They all went all the way, had their own successful schools, you know, mm-hmm. and of course, first and foremost, Dennis Ichikawa came out of there. He came out of it, and he taught Priscilla Presley as one of the celebrities, because mm-hmm. that was the studio where the celebrities came.
She still has his green belt, as the story goes.
I'm sure she's wearing it around the mansion. So anyways, as it goes, my hero at the time, well, Chuck Norris, I got the Chuck Norris stories. I was there. I witnessed martial arts history and have been part of it in real time in the first 10 years of my martial art career. So I was a red belt, and Chuck Norris came over, and he brought his film of Return of the Dragon. I think that's what it was. And the very first one he was in. And brought a screen and a projector. And all the students, he did this for his students. And at that time, there were a franchise of 4 Chuck Norris studios. It was Santa Monica, Wilshire, Granada Hills, and Sherman Oaks. So he would do that to all his schools. I mean, that's how much he cared. And so we all sat there and we watched it. Wow, Master Norris, you know, we like. Then he brought Breaker Breaker the next time, did the same exact thing. Breaker Breaker was one of his finest films because he had one line. Yes. That was it. That's all he said. Okay. We love him anyways. Okay. So now we're moving up, and he does Good Guys Wear Black. Now we're coming into a little screening studio where he's moving as a school. So we get to watch that. And then full theater when it became Force of One, and so on and so forth. So I was there and witnessed the inception of Chuck Norris's career. And because of Pat Johnson sanctioning Master Ichikawa's first testing, I'm part of the organization. I'm number 144 out of thousands now. I don't know how many more. Mm-hmm. So that was good. But as far as fighters go, and I don't know if you remember him, you might, Bobby Burbage.
Yes, sir.
I patterned myself as much as I could after him because he had the blitz. And that's what I was mainly known for, off the line. Boom. So, And when I first worked out with Bobby Burbage, I was like a blue belt, and he would come over to Bob Osmond. This is because he was friends with Johnny Atkinson. He said, "Okay, let's work out." And the first thing I do, I try to kick, sweep me down. I was, whoa, okay. I try to kick, sweep me down. Okay, I had enough. You know, but he was. I met at that time another person you know, Roger Lacombe.
Yes, sir.
Yes, me and Roger are lifetime friends in martial arts. We're talking over 50 years now. You know, and so those were the inception of Sherman Oaks.
Mm-hmm.
So
Interesting.
Go ahead.
Interesting story. It's funny because I met Roger Lacombe probably mid to late '80s, and it turns out that my mom went to school with him, so she's like, I know him. It's so like that was a connection, and then I knew him from other ways over the years, other relationships, and yeah, he's still here in Westlake. He's still running his school.
Oh yeah, I mean it's like she knew him in high school. He must have been a playboy back then too, right? I know. Oh, Roger, I love you, buddy. Okay. Anyways, so let's go to the rise of the Sherman Oaks karate. So I started, as I said, I went to these tournaments and I kept losing. I kept taking, and partially was I was losing to Barry Gordon, who is a strategic, masterful defensive fighter. Okay, and I couldn't get by him. And then there was guys coming. Dexter Brooks and Alvin Crowder came up with Tom Bloom. They were in his group. But so I says to Barry, I says, you know, and this is after Bernie Krasno. I'm sure you heard of Bernie Krasno. Bought Sherman Oaks. So I said, hey, Barry, come on down to Sherman Oaks. Work out with me. You know, I said, you can't beat them, join them. And so on and so forth. And that's how we became, the first team was the Oreos, right? It was Barry, me, and Robert Humphreys. And we go to the kickboxing, what was it called? My goodness, a tournament in 1980. And I fought against Chip Wright. I think you know who Chip Wright is.
I know Chip Wright.
On teams. And Barry Gordon got us disqualified because he hit the guy and bloodied his nose, and we lost our points. So I'm fighting Chip Wright. I tied Chip Wright, but wasn't good enough to win the teams. So it was the PKA Top 10 tournament at that time. And that was another thing in history. That was Nasty Anderson's last brown belt tournament before he turned black belt.
Oh, wow.
He was the undefeated brown belt in those days.
Yeah.
Okay, so now Tuesday night was our sparring night, and Barry'd come down. Then the other guys just started coming down, and it became a thing. Tuesday night, fight night, and everybody would come. Even Bill Wallace would come down, and everyone, and Don the Dragon Wilson, all these guys would come train with us. So from 1980 to 1981 to 85, our team, which consisted of myself, Barry Gordon, Johnny Gyro, I think it was Dexter Brooks, and Alvin Crowder, we won 5 years in a row. And they hated us. Of course they hated us. I was the guy everybody loved to hate. It's okay. I don't mind. I'm now Pastor Poe. You don't have to hate me anymore. Okay, so we won so much that they didn't stop putting the teams on stage. Okay, so in 1985, I left to go on my own. Ron Purnell Karate Academy started, and I brought a new team with Satch Williams, Mark Foster, and we met my old team, right? So we're up by one, and then the turnaround was Mark Zacharias. He got Mark Foster by one, and we lost by 1 point. Oh, heartbreak, but still, you know, starting all over and getting another team. That was pretty cool.
Satch was a beast. I remember he was at the tail end of his career when I started in the 90s and the early 90s. And I just remember having to look across the ring at Satch Williams and go, oh my God, this is either this is going to be really fast or this is going to be really tough.
Well, he was a member of my team. And actually, so one time we got recruited to go to Guatemala. And it was myself, Satch, Joey Escobar was with us, and Gyro. And then they couldn't say Gyro's name. And here he is, Johnny Giro, you know. And then the guys come up, they say, hey, yo, Pohnel, this movie crap's not going to work here. But it did. Okay. So our team won, and Sats comes with almost a broken leg. He's coming on the corner. What are you coming on the plane with a crutch for? I'm ready. I'll be ready to fight. Don't worry. I'll be ready to fight. But we won 4 guys. We had 4 guys, not 5. One guy dropped out. I think Dexter dropped out. One guy dropped out, and we still won the team championship with the 4 guys. A couple times, I fought twice. Escobar fought twice, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So that was huge. But Sats, the last time they came to Hawaii, and they fought the Hawaiian All-Stars that we put together for the Festival of the Kings, and we swept the Festival of the Kings. Because Hawaii was behind when I got here. They were still in this kind of mode, traditional, and then it was the bully mode where the toughest guy won. It was a tough man contest for tournaments. When I came in, I had the fighter in motion finesse move, boom, hit and run, hit, get out, and they weren't used to that. So anyway, Satch comes over, and one by one, he beats every one of the All-Stars. So this is a different tournament, and it's just him and me now, okay? So I go up, I go, okay, boom, I got the first move. He gets the second, boom, I got a rich hand on him. And then I did this. I did what, I don't know if you know Ray McCullum is. It does the drop.
Mm-hmm.
He comes charging in, I drop. He flies over, does a somersault, comes up. I'm coming in to get the point. He front kicks me in the stomach, takes my win. That was it. And then I'm okay. I'm gonna have to fake I'm okay, and boom, and he beats me. And we talked about it at the end at a restaurant that night. And he says, "Oh, I knew I had you." I said, "But his hands were like a brick." Yeah. So fighting Satch Williams, it's like, as small as I am to him, you have to fight fearlessly. You cannot fight like you're afraid. That's you have to attack that person no matter what.
Yep.
And that's the secret behind the success, because offense was my defense. More than I went in flailing, that was my defense from people coming at me, except for the maximal defensive fighters that got me.
Let's take a quick break. We got a bunch of viewers actually commenting so far. I know you're watching out there. If you guys have any questions for Mr. Pohnel, please put some questions in here. We got David Starachi is watching right now. He says, my favorite was your fight with Frank Trejo. Tell me about that fight.
Okay, so that was 1981. I'm very sure 1981 internationals, the Budweiser team versus the Sherman Oaks Raiders. And Trejo, now this is he just took me like for granted, like he took me lightly because he was drinking beer before the match. And so we get off, and as soon as I boom, I'm off with a back fist, right? And he goes, "Whoa, okay." I woke up, and then he comes up, boom, and it's back and forth, and we're duking it out. Now here's another big man, and I'm duking it out, and I knocked him off the stage with a ridge hand, and he falls into Ed Parker's lap. This is on the video. Okay, so he gets back, and the fight goes 3-3. And of course, and our team wins, of course, because that was our first big win. And they expected the Budweiser team to win, of course, because it was a national team. They had like Tony Young on there. I can't name all the names, but they had some great fighters from back east. Mm-hmm. And that was the true story. And I was very flashy in those days. I've calmed down a lot. I'm old now.
Well, we all get there at some point, right? But you're still, to this day, you've still competed. You've competed in the 55 and over divisions. I know you did some online competitions. Mr. Strachey, who's one of my favorite black belts and instructors of all time, by the way. I always love taking his class. Such a great workout and a great energy. Cool dude.
I have a story about David, because David.
Tell me.
During COVID, now this is a real good story. During COVID, I'm preparing him for these online tournaments. Mm-hmm. So I'm doing private lessons with him, and he's taking my Zoom Tang Soo Do class. Mm-hmm. And we go to the end of the league finals, and he gets up and he does really good. He was strong, and I get up there and I'm going like I'm doing my real fast stuff, right? But he was sharper than me because I was going too fast. He beat me. I said, "This is great." that's still a win for me. You know what I mean? But I won. I won in the musical kata after that. But David is a fantastic martial artist, mainly because you and me and him, we all have the same roots. He's under Master Ichikawa. Kudos,
Mhm.
Master Ichikawa.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know anybody. Back in the day, um, Mr. Ichikawa's forms, like all of his black belts and students that competed, always did really well in forms. But there was a lot of great fighters from back in the day. So, David Strachey was a great fighter. Brian Nan, Mark Cox, David Cox. These are all Conrad Ercolano. These are all the people that I came up with. Tiffany Schaefer, then Tiffany Wing, Kathy Grunwald. Some
Oh, I
tough,
remember.
tough, tough
And one
fighters.
you're missing is Tom Cole.
I didn't know
Tom,
Tom Cole.
you didn't know him. Tom Cole was actually, he was actually a student, not quite my student. He was more of a peer, but And one time he got me at a tournament just because I was overzealous. I'm trying to, and he got me with defensive sidekicks. But you know what? Tom Cole came to me because he needed to be promoted to 5th degree to be able to join George Dillman's class. You know who George Dillman is,
Yes.
right?
Uh-huh.
And George Dillman, I guess, would not take anyone for 5th degree. And I wasn't going to give him a 5th degree. So he came to Hawaii. I said, you got to learn these katas, and then I'll promote you. And he did it. He went through and he did the katas. And once again, he's a Dennis Ichikawa Black. He was good.
Yeah.
And
two others, Tom and Bobby Block. Those were
yes, of course. And there's so Bobby Block and I met at the internationals one time. And because Tom Bloom, I'm not Tom Bloom, Tom Cole got me one time. Bobby was out for blood, but he didn't get past me that day.
Those were some good times. I love talking about this stuff. But someone is watching here on YouTube, and their question is: tell us about the first time you saw Ralph Macchio in the now iconic Karate Kid movie. So first, tell me, what was your actual involvement in the Karate Kid 1 and 2 movies? What did you do in there, and then tell us about meeting Ralph Macchio.
Okay, so in Karate Kid 1, I was basically there to help coordinate the big tournament season.
Okay.
I was there, and it was an actual tournament that we participated in. So I was also, when they did the filming and they did the overhead thing, I was in the judging scene and judging them. Karate Kid 2, I did a stunt. I was doing stunts, martial arts stunts. The part where Macchio is walking in Okinawa down the street with his girlfriend, and he looks in the window of the antagonist, the guy that he, okay? And the antagonist says, you, and he just boom, 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 boom. And this is so funny. So my part was I'm getting hit with a hook kick. I go here, and there was a rack full of martial art weapons and bows. So I go there, and I get the hit, and I grab the bows, and I pull them all on top of me. Pat Johnson comes over. He goes, Ron, what happened? I don't know, Mr. Johnson. I don't know what happened. But every time we see Karate Kid 2 on TV, I'm like, the scene's coming up, honey. My wife, no, I'm sick of it, okay? I don't want to watch you anymore. So that's my wife, okay?
So tell us about the first time that you saw or met Ralph Macchio.
So Ralph Macchio, Pat Johnson pulled me aside when class was over. I was the afternoon guy, and he was doing private lessons with Macchio and Pat Morita. He says, Ron, I want you to hold the target. Okay. So here I am, and I'm watching, and Macchio, he just looks like this and working at. And I'm going, oh, Master Johnson, I couldn't say anything. Why don't you teach him a real, and Ralph was just a cool kid. He was an actor. He was an actor trying to be a martial artist. I'm a martial artist trying to be an actor. Totally different. Yeah.
How about Billy Zabka? He actually did more martial arts than Ralph Macchio in the movie, if I'm not mistaken. Did you get a chance to meet him as well?
I didn't get a chance to meet any of those guys. The only the people that Pat Johnson brought over. So that was about it.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you on YouTube for that question. Guys, again, if you're watching this live and you have any questions, this is an interactive show. So we love to hear your questions or any of your stories that you want to remind us about. But how about the movie No Retreat, No Surrender? This was Jean-Claude Van Damme's first movie, correct? And not his first appearance, because I think his first appearance was in the movie Breakin', where he was kind of standing off to the side.
I think, well, first of all, he was a dancer more so than a martial artist.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually, Brandon Pender was my manager at that time. He says, we're going to go audition for this. Okay. And I'm very blessed. It wasn't that I had to read anything. It was improv. And that was my strong suit. So I'm improvising the scene with the girl and so on and so forth. And they show my martial arts skills and said, I like this guy. So I was actually being chose for the lead at that time. But then they were talking about it and they wanted the lead to be a younger guy. I was 27. I was a younger guy. But they chose the kid. And so they gave me the part that I got. And Jean-Claude Van Damme and I, we were not friends. Okay, so this is funny. Mark Zacharias, who is Belgian, and so is Jean-Claude Van Damme. So Van Damme says something like, in French, he goes, "Oh, these guys are a bunch of wimps, a bunch of wussies," you know. And Zacharias says something in French. He says, "Hey, you want to go out in the ring? You want to try it? You know." And so he stopped speaking French around us. Then he says to me, "This is because I trained for No Retreat, No Surrender. I trained for it like I was doing a tournament. I didn't just do it for, like, here, I'm going to try to do a movie. No, I worked my butt off to be as sharp as I possibly could." And Van Damme says to me, he says, "You know something? You are the best one here next to me." And I go, "Oh, really?" Okay. So I thought that was quite humorous. So our third day, it took 3 days to do that fight scene that you see in the ring. And by the third day, the producers had to pull us aside because we were ready to really, really duke it out. And I was going to groin him because, he doesn't know what a groin shot is. And I was a masterful groin shot, with like, boom, I'm right there, And they calmed us down and we were able to finish it off. But Van Damme was not a nice guy. Peter Cunningham was the world champion, the lightweight world champion at the time. Mm-hmm. And the scene that you see him doing the jump kick and down was for real. He really knocked him out, and they used it. Okay? And the thing is, his comment was, "Well, I want it to look real." Oh, really? This is a movie. You're trying to hurt people? So that was his problem, but he couldn't hurt me because I was overly prepared. He couldn't get me.
Well, let me ask you this. You mentioned groin shots. How do you feel about tournaments these days that do not allow groin contact?
Well, the thing is, when I came back, when I started the 2011 tour that went 9 years, COVID knocked it out. The NBL allowed at the beginning groin shots every other season. Okay, so here I come back, 2008. I'm fighting an NBL tournament. No, the thing is, no one knows who I am in 2008. Only one guy who remembered me when he was a kid. And I'm fighting guys that are big, huge, number one NBL champions. And I'm going through them, whap, 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 because I have the groin shots. And they're going, "What's going on here?" They're not used to it. And one of my best friends and one of my teammates, and one of the greatest martial artists in the NBL and NASCA, Bill Hunter, I fought him that day. We didn't know who each other was. And I got by Bill, and everyone says to me, do you know who that was that you beat? I go, I don't know. And Bill Hunter and I, through our career, we were best friends and we fought on teams together, going back and forth, but he bested me by one. Bill, I remember. Okay, and we got filmed, but he's really, really good. And from that point on, now I had to learn, I didn't mind not doing the groin kicks because I too was a kicker. I could keep my knee up, a hook round side, boom, boom, boom. I used to be able to do that all the way into my 50s. Then I got old. Okay, so I didn't mind not doing that because any kick was a 2-pointer. So I still had an advantage over most people that I fought.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a groin expert. Tom Bloom was a groin expert. Johnny Gyro was a groin expert, and Joey. We're all groin experts. We had the thing where you induce the groin shot. You boom, the knee would come up for the side kick. You fake knee come up, boom, 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 boom. The teeter-totter thing, and we get the groin. Then there was another thing I used to do. It was really cool. I look you in the eyes. I'm fighting. I do this to you. I look you in the eyes and go, "What's that?" Boom, hit your groin because you couldn't see it. There were so many tricks that I used back in the day that nobody knows about. That aren't used anymore because the game has changed. Old school martial arts, you not only had to be a good martial artist, a technician, you had to be a fighter. You really had to fight. Nowadays, it's all, okay, I'm clean, I'm a good sport, I'm going to get the point, boom, boom, okay, no, we're not going to fight, boom, I got the point. I was this guy. I go to that groin shot, boom, right there. I call my own point because the judges were so lame they'd miss it. So anyway, I did that until they says, okay, stop calling your own points. But it worked because it would influence the judges. So the tricks that I used are no longer used in this day and age.
It's a different game, that's for sure. Well, let's keep going on the movies. We talked about Karate Kid 1 and 2. We talked about No Retreat, No Surrender. There's a movie right behind you, a poster. I believe is it Drifter?
Oh yeah. Okay, so Drifter. Now Drifter was really cool. So I moved to. I came over to California for a small stint, like 3 years, to help my mother with her real estate. Because I had to manage some of her real estate properties. So I came over and I hooked up with Bob Wall. Do you ever remember World Black Belt?
Mm-hmm.
Bob Wall's so funny. He would hear me doing an impression of him. He'd go, "Ron, come here. I want you to answer the phone as me, okay?" That's what he told me to do. I go, "Oh, this is Bob Wall. No, I don't want it." Boom. And seriously. So anyways, through them, I hooked up with Leo Fong. His son worked at World Black Belt. And so Leo Fong and he became a mentor of mine because I was doing television production when I was in Hawaii. So Leo Fong taught me how to do film production. He says, "Come here. Okay, this is a script. We're gonna do this. This is how you write a script. Okay, show me every aspect of what we needed to do." So we did a movie together. Do you know who the Mouse is, right?
Yeah, Michelle
Bernie
Krasner. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it was starring the Mouse, and we worked with him, and it was a pretty. Thunder Kick was the movie, and I directed the film, and I did all the editing because I was an edit whiz. I could edit really quick and on the marks. And so after that, my wife and I took on the project. So when I was in Hawaii, I did this little scene when I was in. I had a TV show called Karate Talk, and I put these little segments in there. This one was called the Taekwondo Drifter, and the Taekwondo Drifter was a scraggly guy with a beard, and he'd go, "Hey, excuse me, have you seen it?" And so I took that character, which is, let's see if you get that guy. I took that character and I made a whole film around him. And I used Blake. Let's see. I'm sure Blake. I used them. I'm trying to now. Now I'm blanking out all these guys that I used that were in the film, and it took me. We did it in a 12-day segment. 12 days of shooting. I hooked up with some guys in Arizona. Went to my dad's ranch, and we were able to film the whole thing. And it wasn't a martial art film. It was a film about a martial artist. So it wasn't, so much about, bunch of kicks and all this stuff flying around. It was Blake Foster who was Blake Foster.
I know Blake.
So I got him as a grown man, and here I am, old man, blanking out. But we entered the film in it was called Action and Film Festival. And okay, I'm going to tell you something that nobody does, but I did. So we only filmed, a number of days of filming was 20 days. So we didn't have time for choreography. So I says, listen, to all the guys that I worked on, I said, we're going to fight on film, and then I'll cut around it, and we'll do pickup shots. And it worked. I got nominations for best fight sequence and best choreography using that concept. No one would ever use that concept.
Right.
But it worked. You know?
Nice. Very cool. Well, hey, listen, guys, we are in about a 5 minutes from wrapping here today. And I know that there's still a lot of people watching live, and we've had several comments already, but last chance to drop any comments, questions, or any old stories that you want us to talk about. The last thing I want to touch on, Mr. Pohnel, is you're wearing the shirt League of Angels. Tell us about that.
Okay, so the first team that I was able to get on was for a senior team was called the Executive Edge. And that was a team from back east, and I was fighting it's only seniors and above. So when that executive fell apart, I put in for Fighters Inc. I put in my bid for a team, for a senior team, since that one fell apart, and I got it. We got sponsored by Fighters Inc. So I go to the senior pastor at New Hope, Oahu, and I says, hey, I've got the sponsorship for a martial art team. I will teach over here for free as a ministry if you give us a facility. Boom! We've had this facility for 7 years.
Wow.
The
Cool.
League of Angels Martial Art Ministry. Now, that's the Martial Art Ministry, the League of Angels senior team. My wife basically coordinated the whole thing. She was absolutely fantastic. Plus, she's a champion in her own right. I mean, she would win the world champion 3-4 years in a row kind of thing. So anyways, I was the leader of the team, and I got guys that I knew 40, 50 years ago. Marty Knight, Joy, oh my God, Joy, Joy, I didn't forget your name. And we got together for the team around the country because we went around. In 2017, we won everything. We won the 3-man team. We won the 2-man with myself and Joey Shiflett. We're talking Shiflett was back when I was a kid. Marty Knight. We won, and I won at that time the senior 60-plus world championship. Because I went in, it's like you got to set goals and achieve. You just can't, I'm going to the tournament, you know. So I went in, I said, okay, beginning of the year, I'm going to take this seriously. And in the 60-plus, you're lucky if you have a match. I had a match every single time, and I won every single match that year to get the title. And but the cool thing is, it's just doing it. You set the goal, and you're able to achieve it. Mm-hmm. And nobody knows who I was. That's what's funny. Yeah. Nobody, you know.
Well, tell me about Pastor Poe.
Pastor Poe is the guy who runs the martial art ministry. And basically, in a martial art ministry, there is no belt programs, and there's really no real promotion programs, and it's not so much an activity as to where most of the people in the congregation that would come would be. But I have people that have been in the martial art ministry with me for 7 years. Okay, so the ministry, what it is I give a devotional at the end of the class. So I don't have to be like the standard preacher or minister who stands up for 45 minutes and gives a sermon. I get to do it in 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. So the ministry's good. And we talk the word of God. And from that ministry and from the time that I had, I wrote the book called Undercover Reverend, which is an actual true story or based off actual events that when I was working at the high school. So I worked at the high school. My wife was a vice principal. She says, okay, I'll get you a job as an educational aide. Okay, but the principal, the other VP hired me. He says, I need you to help me curtail the bully epidemic that we have here. And they did. So I would, the first thing I did when I got in, I get all these guys says, give me the worst of the worst. Give me your worst. And I pulled them into a room, and about 7, 8 guys. And I showed them that my tournament match that I did. And I says, you know why I'm showing you this? And they go, what? You want us to respect you, Mister? I go, no, I'm putting together a karate team. Which one of you guys would like to be on it? Not one. See, that's how you call out a bully. You got it? Not one of them joined the team. Not one of them took martial arts. They just, they're bullies because together they make one group. You see, individually.
Right.
So anyways, as the book goes, the senior pastor basically is looking for the protagonist, who is a martial arts minister from the mainland, who's a big karate champion, and he's a martial artist, and in the book he wants to make a martial art ministry to rebuild a church after the other pastor died. And all the things that went on at the school, I mean, true stories, and basically went on and made in the movie The League of Angels, which is a neighborhood watch to stop crime in the neighborhoods. And the church is only a mile from the high school, so on and so forth. So all the adventures that went on, and how I was able to reach people with the word of God, how I was able to turn lives around with the word of God. And some of those students are still going to church to this day.
Hey, good for you. Now, where can we find this book? Where can people order your book?
Right on Amazon. Undercover Reverend. My who wrote it with me was Jack Felton Sr. Now, you know who Jack Felton Jr. is, right?
Yeah, he's killing it.
Well, his dad's also a minister. We got together. All of the stuff, all of the wisdom of the book comes from him. So we wrote it together, and I gave him the part of the senior pastor, right for the senior pastor. That's all I wanted to do. And it's actually one of his, and he's a New York best-selling author, Jack Felton. So it was great to team up with him. Unfortunately, we were ready for the 2019 tour, and COVID flew it. My book came out in 2019. It's ready. We're going to our book churches and things that
Well, we're back on track now, right? I mean, hopefully COVID is long and far behind us. So yeah, go check out the book, guys. And real quick, there is one question. We got Marcus DiValentino wanted us to let you talk about your rank. So brag for a minute on.
I'm so glad, Master. Let me tell you about Master DiValentino. I gave him a text message. I said, watch the show, Master. Watch the. So, anyways, when I was telling you about Dillman and Wally J, this man, Marcus DiValentino, is their equal. To me, the true definition of a master is how well you know your pressure points and joint manipulation. That's it. This man is the master of joint manipulation. I'm a 4th degree under Marcus DiValentino. When COVID came, before COVID, actually, he promoted me to 1st degree just by going out and doing his katas in tournaments. He was training me. And then COVID came, and I was his only student because we would do it on Zoom. And I was promoted to 2nd and promoted 3rd. And I finally did the last test last year, and it was a grueling test for me. I'm an old man. But I'm a 4th degree in Okinawan Kempo because Okinawa Kempo under Marcus DiValentino. I'm so proud to say that most everybody in the martial arts goes a different direction. How many systems do you know, Jason?
A few.
Yes. So I was happy. I reinvented myself, but still having Ichikawa's basics under my belt with Master DiValentino's new forms. I was winning the end of my career as a tournament competitor. I was a kata champion, not only kata chikapa and weapons champion. And thanks to Master DiValentino, who, and he's here on the island, right? And anybody, if they were blessed to know, it's like they don't know who I am. People don't know who he is. This guy is by far one of the best masters alive today, who can teach you how to do everything from beginning to end and what it means.
Wow. Great. Well, it's, thanks for asking that question, Marcus, and thanks for sharing some of the extra information. So, guys, we're wrapping up here in the next 30 seconds. Just want to take a minute to thank Mr. Pohnel for being on the show. It's been a privilege just to hear all these old school stories and to hear about my instructor Dennis Ichikawa, plus the Pat Johnson and Chuck Norris years, Sherman Oaks Raiders, and all those tournaments in between, plus all those movies that are right behind you, Karate Kid 1 and 2, of course. The Drifter, No Retreat, No Surrender, all good ones. Thanks for being on the show today. I appreciate your time. If you could hang out for about 60 seconds, I'm going to wrap up with a little video and we'll have a little meeting when we're done.
You got it, buddy.
All right. Thank you so much. All right, guys. Well, check us out again. I'll be here on YouTube one more time this week on Wednesday, and we'll be back again next Monday and every Monday right here for Master Motivation. Make it a great week, guys. And again, Happy New Year to everyone.